Let's get the very latest and begin in the capital, Kyiv, with correspondent Gulliver Cragg. Gulliver, tell us where you are.
Yes, I was hoping to do this live for you from in front of the beautiful St. Michael's Cathedral. I just got back to Kyiv today after a long absence, but just as I was going outside, the air raid sirens went off, and I decided it would be better to follow the instructions and head for the safety of this underground car park underneath the hotel, which has been turned into a bomb shelter.
Into a bomb shelter. Right now, what's the latest, before that air raid sounded, what was the latest you were hearing as far as the fighting to the north and northwest of the capital?
Yes, I think it's important to stress that the centre of Kyiv has so far not been shelled at all. Some buildings more towards the outskirts of Kyiv have been hit with deadly consequences in recent days, but the main intense fighting is taking place around the sort of satellite towns of Irpin, Hostomel, Bucha. Those are to the northwest of the city centre, and that's where the Ukrainians are saying that they have staged a successful counter-offensive. They're claiming to have encircled those three towns, but I'm not sure really how successful their counter-offensive has been. US intelligence has confirmed that they have had some successes in this counter-offensive. The Ukrainians are claiming really very big successes, but even the simple fact that they are on a counter-offensive at all is not what people were predicting a week or so ago, when people were thinking it was just a matter of time before Irpin, for example, would fall completely to the Russian forces. It seems clear that the battle for those Kyiv satellite towns is still very much ongoing. The Ukrainian authorities say that there has been pretty heavy shelling of various localities around that area to the west and northwest of Kyiv.
Let's get a sample of those Ukrainian claims. Earlier, you had the mayor of Kyiv, the former heavyweight boxing champion Vitaly Klitschko, speaking in the company of his brother Vladimir.
This near to Brovary, it's open information. From the west of Ukraine, from the north, in behind the Lutish, and there is big battle. And from official sources we receive information. Right now the small city Makariv and almost whole Irpin already in the control is Ukrainian soldier.
Now, Gulliver Cragg, we've had no independent confirmation 24 hours on of the retaking by Ukrainian forces of that suburb of Makariv. What more do we know about precisely what's going on there?
Well, I think we can't really know precisely, also because I think the situation is constantly changing. As I said, the US did go so far as to confirm that Ukrainian forces were counter-attacking. They have claimed to have surrounded Irpin, Hostomel and Bucha, but that would actually involve moving Russian forces out of a vast swathe of territory that they hold to the north of those localities. So that would be a pretty impressive feat if true. My guess is that it's a little bit less clear than what some of the Ukrainian leaders are saying. Of course, their task is also to keep the country's morale up. But I mean, definitely they're holding back the Russians' attack for the moment, and in some places counterattacking to the northwest of Kyiv is one place. Also in the south there have been counterattacks. I spoke a few days ago to a farmer who said that part of his land was occupied by the Russians, and then called him 2 days later and he said, oh yeah, they've gone now, we fought them off. There are places where the Russians are in retreat, but I think it's important not to exaggerate the scale of this retreat.
Gulliver, you mentioned at the outset driving back from the west of Ukraine. What's the feeling going back into Kyiv?
Well, you know, I left a city, well, that was where the war had just began. It was the 25th of February when I left. The sirens were going off all the time and artillery could be heard, and everybody was bewildered and I guess rushing to prepare in terms of the Ukrainians' military response. Now we see a city that is fortified. To get into Kyiv, you have to go through several checkpoints on street corners. There are defenses very visible. This is a city at war, and of course a large part of whose population have left. There are very few shops and cafes open, some supermarkets, some cafes though, but generally it feels a little bit like a ghost town, though there are a reasonable number of cars driving around. Perhaps you would like to hear the description of Maidan, the Maidan Square where the revolution took place in 2014, the very center of Kyiv. That is now full of a rather different sort of barricade than the ones we saw in 2014 during the revolution. These are not so much makeshift ones as clearly professional military checkpoints and barricades across the Maidan Square in the center of the city.
All right, Ukrainians digging in for the long haul. Gulliver Cragg reporting live from the capital. Many thanks for that update.